In less than 10 years, Milton Keynes grew from being an essentially rural landscape with villages, country lanes and fields to an established new city with grid roads, housing, industries, schools, parks and the largest covered shopping centre in Europe. By the mid-1970s, Milton Keynes Development Corporation was documenting this rapid growth on cinema quality film with seemingly no expense spared. And thanks to these films having been preserved by the Buckinghamshire County Archive, we're now able to see a new city in the making. Here, for instance, is what we now call Centre MK in about 1974, with Lloyd's Court just appearing in the picture on the right. The trees at the far end are where Marks & Spencer's now is, with the church and CBX beyond, and notice that there's no development whatever to the west of that, except perhaps the village of Loughton. The pictures you're viewing here are taken from the original film negative that went through the camera. Here the camera pans from west to east along the yet to be constructed Silbury Boulevard. And as we pass over South Fishermead, the beginnings of Eaglestone. The grid roads having just been opened and with no landscaping whatsoever. Note the fields in the upper frame on which the Milton Keynes University Hospital now stands, with Pear Tree Bridge top left and Coffee Hall managing to sneak in top right in the frame. Already we have roundabouts and roads that go nowhere. Not a single tree at Bradville either. This is the top end of Crispin Road with the solar heated house in Harrowden. Hanmer Road in Simpson, complete with trees that predate the development. This was one of Milton Keynes' earliest housing developments. And the flat roofs of Bean Hill. They collected rainfall, they let water in, and they had to be replaced with pitched roofs in the 1980s, like Coffee Hall and Fishermead. Now, you have to be of a certain age to know who this young woman is calling. Nope, she doesn't want a taxi. Regular buses are as rare as hen's teeth, but never fear, because she has only to make a phone call and the dialer bus will take her from door to door. The unmistakable yellow vehicles were a familiar sight on Milton Keynes roads for a good 2 or 3 years from the mid-1970s. The concept was a good one, providing that you were the only passenger on a bus that could then take you directly to your destination. It was a bit of a problem when you had to go to other passengers' destinations en route though. In time, the dialer buses adhered to set routes, which kind of defeated the object really. Here, she makes it to her chosen destination, in this case, Queensway in Bletchley. And so to the first phase of Fishermead, just south of where the Xgate building now is, with its unique 3-storey townhouses arranged in a square grid pattern. On the left is what will become the Co-op, and immediately opposite is the building that will house Channel 40, and then CRMK, and to this day the Samaritans, 161 Fishermead Boulevard. Well, well. Now, the original 2-part plan for Milton Keynes, published in 1970, set out a vision for the new city in meticulous detail. This represents the strategic plan for 20 or 30 years hence, and it's largely the way things have worked out, give or take. One of the ideas was that telephone, television and radio signals should be distributed underground rather than by rooftop aerials. A project that was underway in Swindon enabled the use of the cable system to run a local TV service under a special licence from the Home Office. This was Swindon Viewpoint. And what's good for Swindon is surely good enough for Milton Keynes. And so, with funding from the Development Corporation and the Post Office Telecommunications, later BT, Channel 40 was born in 1976. Community access cable television. Television for the people, by the people. A sort of YouTube of its day. Run with a core staff of 7 who were there to support people and help them to bring their ideas to life in the form of programme items, Channel 40 offered training in the use of portable video recording equipment and offered technical support with editing and studio production too. The Sony 3/4-inch U-matic professional video cassette recording system is a very robust format, and the remaining Channel 40 recordings have survived storage in the Bucks County Archive surprisingly well. But playback and digital preservation requires equipment that's becoming increasingly rare and expensive to maintain. Correct handling of the tapes for reproduction and eventual digitization is critical, and a wrongly aligned tape machine will risk damaging the tape permanently. Only a few years ago these machines could be picked up for a song, but the demand for digital archiving means that prices are increasing, so we have to look after them. Now, of the 160 or 170 surviving tapes that make up the Channel 40 archive, we've only so far been able to digitise about 30 tapes. It takes time, and there's quite a way to go. So, here's a preview of some of the work to date. Nope, it's not a riot after the Newport Pagnell pubs have kicked out early, but a reenactment staged in 1977 by the Sealed Knot Society on Bury Field in Newport Pagnell, on which 1,500 of Cromwell's men were garrisoned during the English Civil War. Now, in its early days, Channel 40 covered a lot of public events like this, partly as a means of being seen, in order to encourage people to come forward and to do their own thing. Some members of the Sealed Knot came into the studio later to talk about the event and to tell us about the society.
Well, basically, the society was formed in 1968 and it recreates the life and times of the English Civil War.
Can you tell me, what's the point of the organisation? Is it for a hobby or is it something more than that?
No, it's probably twofold really. It's enjoyment, as well as a hobby, obvious, but also bringing back the colour of that particular period. As with the Cavaliers, the colours was absolutely brilliant what they wore then, and people have gone out their way to research books,
They go from strength to strength.
In this sequence, MP Bill Benyon opens the Greenlees workshop with members of the local community talking about the range of uses they'll put it to and how it will benefit them.
Well, I've worked on painting. I do the patchwork, what you've got on the wall out there, I do that. And we do the boxes of brushes that we're packing, for Boots Chemist. I do a lot of sewing that they do here, like making dresses. I sort of finish them off. And when May does the jumpers and all that, I finish them and do them. I do all the tassels for the hats and tassels for the scarves, and what's there I do.
Really? So you do a bit of everything?
Oh, I do just everything, yes.
Good evening. As many of you already know, this is National Epilepsy Week. Last year was the first National Epilepsy Week ever held, and this year we have with us Sheila McGovern, who is the Action Campaign Organiser for the British Epilepsy Association. I want to ask you first, Sheila, why is there a need to have a National Epilepsy Week?
I think the answer to that is that epilepsy is such a complex condition that if we can intensify the focus of attention...
In the first few months of its existence, Channel 40 attracted representatives of various community organisations and charities eager to spread the word about their latest campaigns and events. And this is a good example.
...of epilepsy. Well, in the first case, you see, we shouldn't talk about epilepsy at all. We should talk about the epilepsies, because there are so many different ways in which it can show itself.
Until the spring of 1979, all of our programmes went out in the evenings, and then rarely were they live. Under the Watch for Live Interactions Carrigorny, various women's groups put together a mid-morning live programme called Things That Mother Never Told Us, presented by community worker Rose Bailey.
Just break in here because we've got Mrs. Capon. I think it's Mrs. Capon on the phone. Hello?
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 Yes, a minute ago you were talking about women and having children on their own. And I myself was on my own for 6 months with a young baby. My son walked out when he was 5 months old. And from then till he was about 10 months to 11 months, I coped with him on my own, on Social Security. And I just wanted to make a point that it can be done, and I made myself very independent. And now I am more mature and more independent, and I know that I can cope if it ever happened again. And I thought, you know, when I heard you talking on the television, I thought, you know, that anyone that is in that position, it can be done. And if you've got people around you that are willing to help you, because it is hard, but, you know, I just, you know, I wanted to say that I've been through it myself, you know, and I felt now that I could cope with anything. And after all, it was the first baby. I've never had a baby before, and, you know, I don't know what you know.
I think it's very good, yes. I think it's very good. As you say, it is hard. It is hard, but you got through it, you know. I think that's very good. And I think you're right, because there was an awful lot of pressure at one time to force women to have their children adopted, wasn't there, if they were left in that position. And they can cope. You know, if you're that sort of person, you can cope, and there's no reason you should give your baby away. You know, if you don't want to, shouldn't be forced into it.
My parents wanted me to move back to London, and I refused. I said, no, I want to stay here. You know, I've got into this position. I want to make a go of it, and I proved them right. You know, I could, you know, I could sort of go through with it, and I was glad I did, because I matured myself, and now I've opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Thank you for phoning in.
Thanks for
I just, you know, I am a member of one of the groups actually on these estates. I mean, I'm from Statey Bushes, and you know, we've got a group here ourselves. So I thought, you know, I'd phone in and give my view.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I think we'll probably wrap up the discussion here, as I can see Tina's baby disappearing. She's not crying at the moment, but ready for feeding. Just about to. The next thing which will be shown, Tina.
To me, this was a clear hint as to the direction Channel 40 could have taken had it survived.
In Shenley all the children put their farthings on the track. Cinder flies up the line she goes. They look as...
Stantonbury campus teacher David Crosley used video as a means of engaging his students in a study of a key aspect of our local history. Here's an excerpt from one of 3 programmes they made with Channel 40's help.
Listen to the whistle as she blows.
In our first programme on railways in Wolverton, we were considering a time before even the first track was laid, so you didn't see many trains. This is something we intend to make up for in this programme. However, it is to a time long before the advent of fast intercity trains that we first turn our attention. That is back to 1833, when Parliament finally granted permission for a railway line to be built between London and Birmingham. The actual building of the railway created great engineering problems. One of the most difficult was the crossing of the River Ouse. This problem was overcome by building an embankment nearly 1.5 miles long and 48 feet high, in the middle of which a viaduct which was 660 feet long and 48 feet high was built. This is the viaduct you can see now, which has 6 arches and is built above the river. These engineering feats can seem small or less great in today's machine age, but it must be remembered that the jobs which are today done by mechanical diggers were then done by hand.
The actual building of the railway was done by turf workers from areas like Lincolnshire, Ireland and the West Country. They were known as navvies. They lived and made their homes with the railways. Where the railways went, they went. They made their home where they got their work. Some lived in huts constructed of damp turf, too low to stand up in. Living like brutes, they were depraved, degraded and reckless. Drunkenness and dissoluteness of morals prevailed. There were many women, but few wives. This tells us much about these people and how they lived, as well as what they did in their spare time. Their equivalent today are the motorway construction workers, who are still often called navvies, but railway navvies had a pick rather than a JCB digger to help them. The arrival of people like these in the Wolverton area had quite a big effect on the neighbourhood. As Sir Frank Markham said in his history of Milton Keynes, the villagers of Bletchley, Wolverton and Loughton learnt new swear words. However, the local publicans were delighted.
This bridge on the A5 marks the spot of Denby Hall, which was the biggest labour camp for navvies in the area. As well as serving as a camp for the navvies, it was also a temporary terminus for the London to Birmingham line, which was being delayed due to engineering difficulties, but would not be completed until September of 1838.
The area around Denby Hall became a shanty town of huts, tents and mud. It was here that the tired traveller from London had to spend some time amongst the navvies and their drunken brawls and fights, until a stagecoach could be caught to Rugby. It was not unlike the Wild West in America. However, by September 1838, the double track had been laid and opened.
By 1840, the railway company had built 60 cottages for the men who worked on it. All the main streets in Wolverton are named after railway superintendents. Streets like Creed Street, Glynn Square, Leadsom Street, Young Street and Berry Street. Berry was the first locomotive superintendent, but he was replaced by J.E. McConnell in 1847, who was to do much for Wolverton. In 1846, the London to Birmingham Railway was merged with several northern lines to form the London North West Railway. The Marquis of Chandos, Duke of Buckingham, became involved in this company, and he persuaded the Queen Victoria and Prince Albert to visit Wolverton and stay at Stowe in 1846. In the early days of the railways, there were many accidents. It was dangerous both to work on the railways and to travel on them. Even though there weren't many trains, they still crashed frequently or came off the rails. People were unaware of the danger of the railways and would often cross the tracks, and even workmen preferred to use the tracks to walk across than use the overhead crossings. On the 5th of July 1847, a pointsman on duty on the Blue Bridge, where I'm now standing, accidentally mistook a mail train for a local goods train and sent it into a siding, killing 7 people. At a time when the sight of one train was a novelty, it was too much to ask people to deal with 2.
Ah, The Sweet Smells of Summer. Very interesting. I enjoyed that programme. By the way, for those of you who are interested in the gardening programme, in a couple of weeks' time, I think it is, he'll be talking about the Wolverton allotments, so make a date for that. Right, now news of courses being offered at the Wolverton College over the next session. Especially interesting for ladies with children, as they are opening up a playgroup so that the mothers can study whilst the children are looked after quite happily. Let's have a look.
Volunteer presenter Ian Coyne. This is a contribution from an organisation, in this case the former Wolverton College of Education, wishing to tell viewers about an upcoming event or community service.
My name's Richard Beasley and my colleague Dennis Jeans is with me, and we want to tell you about some new arrangements that are taking place at the Wolverton College of Further Education. Arrangements which are designed to help particularly mums with young children. From September of this year, we shall be operating within the college a playgroup, a series of daytime tasks.
The Great Linford Festival was an annual event that took place in the grounds of the Linford Manor for many years after this debut in May 1978, and was a firm favourite for many people. The tape from which this digitised version is derived was a copy of the edited master and in relatively poor condition, as you can see from the dropout in the picture, and it wasn't easy to digitise. In fact, it required 6 passes to get a decent transfer, with the best bits being stitched together. Festival director and former head of drama at Stantonbury campus, not to mention his being the co-founder of the Living Archive, Roy Nevitt, provides the commentary.
These are children from Wood End School dancing round the maypole at the Great Linford Festival, Saturday, May the 13th, 1978. Perhaps this will be the first of many such festivals. A few months ago, Chris Drummond of the Great Linford Church approached me and said, would I do a pageant for the festival which his village had to do that year. It was the 3rd year when the villages of Fenny Stratford, Woughton, Great Linford, Simpson joined together in various celebrations. I said I wouldn't do a pageant which seemed to me static and perhaps tending to be lifeless, and I wouldn't do a fete either, which had stalls that were there to make money, but I was interested in doing a carnival which would try to celebrate life. We would involve schools: Linford First School, Linford Combined School, Wood End, Conniborough, Bridgewater Hall, Stantonbury campus. We would start with the children who lived around Linford. Through them we would reach the parents, and beyond them we'd reach the community. How do you communicate the idea to people? I talked my ideas through to an artist, Ron Beanie, and he converted them to the drawings that you're now looking at this moment. There's a great piece of ancient forest at Great Linford, so we would use that as an excuse, if anyone was needed, to take the theme of Robin Hood and his merry men. The whole day would be one of feasting, dancing, singing, music, and dramas. Everything would be geared to the theme of the triumph of summer over winter. The drawings were used to enable people to visualize what we wanted for the day: the contest, the archery. The plays were done as cartoons, the contest.
In the following week, my Channel 40 colleague Cathy Denford invited Roy into the studio to chat about the event.
Did you feel that, given that amount of planning, it still was possible for people who just drifted in on the day to be so fully involved?
People, on the whole, have lost touch with what May is all about, and what May festivals are all about, and what Morris dancing and sword dancing really means. And the ones who were disappointed, not that I met any, I didn't myself meet anybody who's disappointed, may have been expecting something which is more plastic and more the product of our modern society. I would justify the expense of the festival in terms of what it costs to animate a modern community that's lost touch with its original roots, so that you get a result, as we did, of hundreds of people, mostly children, but backed up strongly by adults, going through a day where original modes of celebrating spring and summer at the end of a long winter were very much in evidence. Wedding feast for Robin and Marion.
Trying to keep cool.
Now, as you can imagine, lots of musicians were featured either in the studio or on location. Here's one of my favourites, singer-songwriter Will Abbs, with a song he wrote called Time.
Time.
season.
Former lorry driver and MK's own self-proclaimed poet laureate, Bill Billings, with one of his poems.
My job is mud. My job is mud. Yes, to take it from A to B. It's not easy. Policemen are after me. You see? The new city needs me, but they're all after me. You see? Mud on the roads. There's too many loads. The police are after me. Where's your logbook? There's your mud. Where's your licence? There's some more mud. Look at your tyres. There's your mud. It's not my mud. It's my job. The city needs me, I think. Tipper driver.
And here he is again in a late-night live broadcast, just about held together by Roger Kitchen. Bill, sadly no longer with us, was later awarded an MBE for his services to the community, and he was never afraid to speak his mind.
We have had at least 2 phone calls saying, why is Bill Billings, why has he got to knock Milton Keynes? Before you read us another poem, can you just sort of answer the charge, or you might agree with it?
Well, in one of the poems I'll read in a minute, maybe explain it roughly about the middle of it, but I think I knock it because, first of all, I came into the city and I went into Netherfield, and when the ceiling fell down on our bed, after a little while, I lost a bit of faith in the planners. So really, it's not Milton Keynes I'm knocking. I think it's marvellous conception. It's been brought about by a lot of nice people. I've got some nice friends in it, but the planners, I think there are a hell of a lot of idiots planning Milton Keynes. I think the roads are undersized for a city. I think Netherfield and parts of Bean Hill and parts of Fuller's Slade are absolutely despicable in design, plus they can never be maintained. And I've been moved out of Netherfield because the roof collapsed. And really, I think I just want to blow a few raspberries at the planners. I know it maybe won't affect anybody, but that's all I really do, I suppose.
Okay.
Meanwhile, in the Let's Get Moving studio...
Can you try it once more?
Yeah. All right. On with tonight's programme. We've got info spots, a film of a crazy competition from Fishermead Youth Club, an interview with one of the club's leaders. There's also further details of an interesting job working with the under 14-year-olds in Milton Keynes. Finally, there is the first of 2 reports of the Milton Keynes film and video competition. So, let's get moving with the moles.
The Moles were one of Milton Keynes' best and youngest bands, in my opinion. I directed 2 studio sessions with them, one of which exists in its entirety in the archive. This is one of their own songs. Another popular band was Life is Logic, with their rather unique musical style.
Well, I'm sitting here on this great big cloud just to watch you people running around. I've come a long, long way from that ugly place, but everybody seems so insane. Don't mind saying I'm glad I'm there where everything is so far from home. Just sitting here on this great big cloud, watching you people running around. Oh, we laugh on it. Oh, we're doing it. Oh, we laugh on it. Oh, we're doing it. I remember back in 59 when I shot my lover, I thought I cried. Children, they all died of shame. I'm going to criminal with the same children. White man up with the closest boy.
And here's an interesting fusion between traditional and electric folk music. I think they were called the Wiltsies. Somebody will know. Before my time at Channel 40, here's an early session by the Crusaders Steel Band. Just when our neighbours on Fishermead Boulevard thought they were in for a quiet Sunday afternoon, left-hand drive, rock up to the studio and shake the foundations. Yes, the visual effects were my idea. Well, I was younger then. Channel 40 staged a folk concert at Stantonbury Campus Theatre in 1978. One of the groups appearing was Hagelin's Peace. Check out Channel 40 producer Ray Price on bass guitar and vocals. Such a talented bloke.
There were three men came from the west, their fortunes for to try. And these three men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn should die. They ploughed, they sowed, they
Yep, that's him.
in, throw clods upon his head. And these three men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn was dead.
So remain tuned to channel number 40 on the set, and let's start with a recipe even the non-cooks among you might find easy to do, and that is Spanish omelette in hot stuff.
Hello and welcome once again to Channel 40 Hot Stuff Plus. This week we've got a Spanish omelette by kind permission of Lynn, who knows Sylvie, who knows Colin, and they've given me this recipe here. It's the first time I've ever done it, so here we go. First of all, you need one large potato.
Derek was a former naval chef based in my hometown of Plymouth, who walked into reception one day and said, "I'd like to do a weekly cookery slot for beginners." He did. We shot it in his Bean Hill kitchen on Monday evenings. I edited it on Wednesday and transmitted it on Thursday night as Hot Stuff. Every week. He worked as a chef at Bletchley Park during the day and was once recognised on the bus on the way home. That made him very happy. He used to make mistakes, which I often kept in just for a laugh.
So here we go. First of all, chop your onion as I'm doing. Chop it reasonably small. I've already got some in front of me. You can see there, chopped up.
Soon after my arrival in Milton Keynes in July 1977, I was assigned to a large community arts project being run in Bean Hill by Interaction, called Sweet 16. Like those who took part, I found it immensely inspiring, and to this day it exemplifies what, to me, community media really should be all about. The theme of the project, which brought together local people of all ages, was being 16, and was a superb vehicle for getting people creatively engaged. Project leader Carrie Gorney explains all.
We worked on Sweet 16 from June to September last summer. It started by a small group of teenagers going from house to house delivering questionnaires, which people filled in about when they were 16. That group did a lot of interviews on cassette tape recorders. Transcripts were made of these recordings, and they were used as scripts for plays and films, often performed on the streets by children. We worked on Bean Hill phases 1 and 2, taking a specific street each week for 4 weeks. Children and teenagers collected information and souvenirs and made newspapers, exhibitions, costumes and puppets based on this information. These were all displayed at the street party on the Friday evening. Parents organised the party, making food and bringing records. We decorated the streets with bunting and pictures and invited people to come by doing a street procession. Each week we also met in the evenings in each other's houses to talk about our memories when we were 16. These conversations were videotaped and provide most of the material on this programme. Adults did a lot of drawing and writing for the newspapers and scrapbooks. They also provided old photographs and objects from their past. The climax of Sweet 16 was the Grand Cabaret, held at the meeting place Wastel on Friday, September the 2nd. We decorated the hall with children and adults' artwork, life-sized puppets and seaside scenes. We had lots of sideshows, and the acts were performed by interaction and lots of people who live on the estate. There was a bar, and over 250 people, aged between 4 and 84, came to watch and join in the sing-along led by Lil Kirby. Lots of people helped make this project work so well, but it couldn't have happened without Deborah Finlay, Stephen Lay and Kate Hancock, who worked with Interaction last summer. The summer's activity has made the people who live on Bean Hill want to write the book about Sweet 16, which will be published by the People's Press in Milton Keynes.
Happy days. By Christmas 1978, it was clear that Channel 40's days were numbered. Here, Phil Moscow talks to producer Ray Price about the prospects for the station's successor, Radio 40. Later, CRMK, or Community Radio, Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes, 678 428. Well, okay, so 79 looks really exciting for Radio 40.
Yeah.
And what about for Channel 40?
Well, I'm not so sure about Channel 40. Unfortunately, I've been channeling more of my energies into getting these 4 experimental transmissions together for radio, as you know. So I've lost a certain amount of touch with what's happening in Channel 40. But I think there's no possibility of Channel 40 going out over the air for the next 10 years. I wouldn't have thought. But it's up for grabs. You know, it's really up depending on how much money we can get together from different sources.
But do you think that if Radio 40 actually becomes a main line, the main output from this experimental area here, that Channel 40 would perhaps go in a different direction? The video would narrow down its field of view?
I don't know. There are...
And so it came to be that Channel 40 closed on July the 31st, 1979, and I was out of a job. What's called the MKDC AV archive contains much, much more than Channel 40 materials. So, to play us out, here's a short compilation of recordings that those of you of a certain age will remember with fondness. Enjoy.
Never seen anywhere like it. Central Milton Keynes. Never been anywhere like it. Central Milton Keynes.
Come shopping at Central Milton Keynes, where your favourite stores are all under one roof, where the parking's free, and there's the biggest new department store for close on 50 miles.
Central Milton Keynes. Shopping as it should be.
Junction 14 off the M1.
Wouldn't it be nice if all cities were like Milton Keynes? Wouldn't it be nice if all cities were like Milton Keynes?